This idea of invading any country that happens to border Russia is unacceptable. He ruined whatever charm offensive he launched in Sochi on the streets of Sebastopol in Crimea when he sent thousands of Russian troops in an effort to take this over. This solidarity in this hall today is an indication of many Ukrainians and friends of Ukraine who will come together to encourage the United States to stand with this nation. Well, this was a good meeting. The questions asked here today were thoughtful questions. People are aware of the Budapest Memorandum, 1994. A memorandum where Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons as long as those around Ukraine would guarantee its safety. Well, Russia signed that, and now Russia is violating it. The president needs to make that clear to the world. What I heard from Secretary of State Kerry yesterday is that we are gathering support in Europe, among our NATO allies, and from around the world for a strong, solid, unified position with the United States in the lead to stand behind a peaceful resolution in Ukraine. No one has suggested, I have not suggested, military action by the United States. One of the people today suggested we might move our fleet closer, but there's been no suggestion from the administration of boots on the ground or military forces. At this point, we need to use every non-military means available to persuade Putin to stop this aggressive action in Crimea.
Senator, talk about the far-reaching implications when you're dealing with a situation that continues to escalate. I know that you spoke about non-military. Talk about a reference to the Budapest Memorandum. If the United States does not take a more aggressive approach, what it says about those other countries that we're asking to give up our nuclear weapons.
There's an important lesson to be learned in Ukraine. In 1994, coming out of the Soviet Union, Ukraine had nuclear weapons. And Ukraine said, we are going to destroy our nuclear weapons if you will promise us that we will be safe. The Budapest Memorandum, signed by Russia, made that promise, a promise which was broken in Crimea. If we don't enforce that promise, it is difficult for us to convince leaders in Iran and North Korea to give up nuclear weapons and to have a feeling that they'll be safe. So we've got to have some assurance that the rest of the world will stand behind those who might misuse nuclear weapons if they're prepared to give up on them. I tried to make it clear that sanctions take a long time and many countries to have any impact, and sanctions against Russia would certainly take a long time to have any impact. But we should start to make it clear we're serious. There are things that can be done. The G8 summit that is planned for Russia, I think, should be canceled. Perhaps the G8 should become the G7 until Mr. Putin decides to stop this aggression. But we ought to start moving forward step by step to let Putin know there's a price to be paid for this aggression.
And Senator, what do you do in the meantime? Well, once the sanctions begin to kick in, we know that the sanctions will kick in. What do you do to try to help the people in Ukraine who are going to may suffer as a result of those sanctions?
There were suggestions here today of a Marshall Plan for Ukraine. I understand the sentiment. I'm not sure that it's realistic with our budget. I just don't believe that we can make a profound impact if we had the resources. But if we can strengthen the Ukrainian economy so the people there have confidence in their future, there'll be more political stability. This notion of working with the International Monetary Fund and many other nations to achieve that is realistic. I think you'll see action by the Congress, bipartisan action supporting Ukraine, number one. Number two, I expect many people to start visiting Kyiv from all around the world so they show solidarity with the new government in that country. And the more we find the presence of foreign leaders, I think the more convinced Putin will be that any further action could be devastating for him. Okay? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.